Welcome to our channel, Gray Matters. We are two neurodivergent ladies who fixate and need to share, and we've created this channel to do just that. Check out our podcast, Fixate Today, Gone Tomorrow, for some deeper dives. The final type of trafficking we'll be discussing in this series is one of the most horrifying crimes one can perpetrate upon another: intimate partner and familial trafficking. Intimate partner and familial trafficking is when family members or intimate partners facilitate or are complicit in forcing victims into sex or labor trafficking. The link between domestic violence and human trafficking is actually key in facilitating familial trafficking, with threats of physical and sexual violence and coercive control.
When you're the bride of Christ and he sees his bride going through abuse and hurt, what do you think he thinks about that?
Many people believe trafficking happens through strangers kidnapping someone when, statistically, 40% of all trafficking cases are familial. Let's look at the intimate partner side of human trafficking. The most common dynamic of this trafficking is a husband or boyfriend forcing his wife or girlfriend into being trafficked. Some marriages or intimate relationships may have been started under fraudulent pretenses, with a victim being lured into a position of forced prostitution, and could include purposeful impregnation to trap the victims and children. Traffickers know to target marginalized, disadvantaged, or vulnerable people and create a trauma bond with the victim. Wayne Miller, JP's father, had created a Bible college called Cathedral Bible College, which relocated to Marion County after Wayne's 2006 arrest for lewdness and prostitution after exposing himself to an undercover Horry County police officer in a bathhouse at Myrtle Beach State Park. In 2014, multiple international students who attended Cathedral Bible College accused Wayne of forced labor with little to no pay. He threatened to have their visas revoked if they did not comply or if they complained. The students accused Wayne of creating a, quote, pervasive climate of fear as he flew into rages often. They were given poor living conditions, including times without hot water, heat, or air conditioning, and being given expired or insufficient amounts of food. The students reported that the college offered, quote, sham classes, which were a ploy to exploit their labor. Students reported working between 30 and 56 hours a week, making roughly $50 per week. They worked both at the college and Wayne's own home. He had set himself up as their caregiver, a paternal pastor, who they literally had to depend on for survival. Wayne was arrested on May 14, 2014. He was given a bond of $250,000. In June 2014, he pled not guilty, but soon changed his plea to guilty when offered a deal. He ended up pleading guilty to fraud in foreign labor contracting, visa fraud, and failure to pay the minimum wage. He was sentenced to time served, 3 years of supervision, and ordered to pay $750,000 in restitution. He was also required to take anger management courses. He had to forfeit his passport until his sentence was complete. 2 years into the supervision, Wayne wrote a letter to the judge asking to be released early and to be given back his passport. He claimed to be suffering from a heart condition, and it was important for him to be able to travel while he could so he could continue mission work and establishing churches and colleges overseas. As of December 2023, Wayne had a brother and sister duo from Pakistan living with him. Allegedly, the man was Wayne's lover. The pair had been touring the U.S. as a singing duo, touring churches with Wayne serving as kind of a manager for them. We haven't heard from the siblings in a while now, but given Wayne's history of taking advantage of people for personal gain, I think it's safe to have concerns. Victims may be conditioned to distrust law enforcement or social workers and fear losing their children if they escape. Forced exploitation can occur through drugs and violence, getting a victim addicted to drugs to force them into non-consensual sex work. On the flip side, this stereotype of addicts, quote, turning tricks for drugs, may make authorities dismiss claims of trafficking. Shames and stigma can make victims apprehensive to come forward with their engagement in non-consensual sex work, especially if a victim is assaulted by someone during the act of the trafficking exchange. Domestic violence may be the push that causes someone to become vulnerable to trafficking. It is easier to perpetrate a power imbalance that is exploitative in a relational structure. Love can be used as a weapon in exploitation. According to UNICEF, nearly 70% of adult female trafficking victims were in some form of domestic violence before being trafficked. Children in the foster care system are at a high risk for being forced into human trafficking. Out-of-home placements statistically show an increased risk to human trafficking and sexual abuse, as vulnerability of these children is increased. For many children in the foster care system, familial, emotional, and basic needs haven't been consistently met throughout their lives.
The foster care system in the U.S. goes all the way back to 1636 in Jamestown, Virginia. The system in the U.S. of becoming the guardian for a child that's separated from his or her family is almost as old as the country itself. Unfortunately, there is a historical evidence of human trafficking taking advantage of the system to groom and exploit the children within it. Foster care produces many victims of human trafficking, but it also produces many traffickers that exploit others. The idea that people passing a government background check doing such awful things is appalling. How could someone exploit children with a similar upbringing? 24% of traffickers were in foster care at some point when they were a child. 48% of the interviewed traffickers ran away from home in their youth due to physical or sexual assault. 100% of the interviewed ex-traffickers reported that they experienced physical violence in their home or foster care placement. 80% of traffickers reported experiencing sexual abuse as a child by a family member, foster care parent, or close family friend. The abuse these convicted traffickers endured doesn't excuse the abuse that they inflicted in turn. There's no excuse for trafficking another human. The statistics that I just mentioned simply illustrate how the foster care system affects both ends of human trafficking. If you'd like to learn more,
and traffickers can lure these kids with promises to meet those needs. The grooming comes into play with this, with the trafficker manipulating emotional bonds. Past or present sexual abuse increases vulnerability as well, as do multiple out-of-home placements. A child placed in a home where the adults make the child aware of his or her role as bringing money in via the foster care payments, this role may stick with the child as their role in the world.
Of reckoning. Over a period of 5 months, we visited with Christina repeatedly, learning about her life in foster care as she prepared to age out of it.
Did any of your foster parents treat you like you were their actual child?
No.
Not one?
Nope. The best experience I've had with a foster parent is a foster parent who did nothing. I'd rather you do nothing than actively make my life harder.
How did that change you? Living with people who weren't caring for you, feeling that sense of instability all the time.
It made me feel terrible. It made me feel like I didn't matter. I struggled with my mental health. I struggled with depression. I was diagnosed with depression at 10 years old. And to feel like, I could die tomorrow and nobody would know. Nobody cares about me. And that is a terrible feeling, to feel like you're in a world full of billions of people and your life does not matter to anybody. It made me feel like, let me please people so that I can have somewhere to stay. Because in foster care, you're working on eggshells. If your foster parent doesn't like you, they can just say, hey, leave my house. But you can't say, hey, I don't really like that foster parent, or hey, can I get another one? You don't have that privilege.
Adults who have aged out of the foster care system are also particularly vulnerable. Foster children lose support when they turn 18, thrusting them into an adulthood without family and resources. Any resources they once had are now taken, leaving them to figure out transitioning into adulthood on their own. They have to build their lives as adults now. Traffickers target this population, creating a sort of foster care to sex trafficking pipeline. There has been a call for government agencies to extend services for children in foster care to the age of 24, allowing for an actual transition into adulthood. This will allow these kids from 18 to 24 to continue receiving services as well as time to learn how to be an adult, empowering them to recognize and avoid coercion into trafficking. The covert manipulation may take years to establish. In Utah, in March 2019, a husband forced his wife of 19 years into sex trafficking when they were unable to make their rent payments. He was physically and emotionally abusive, even locked her out of the home until she had made enough money. In North Carolina, in May 2020, 2 women were separately forced into sex work by their husband and boyfriend. The women both had children with these men. When financial needs weren't able to be met during COVID-19 lockdowns, these men forced their partners to make money for the family. Through ultimatums, guilt, and violence, these women felt like they had no other choice. In Utah, in November 2024, a family doctor was charged with sex trafficking. He recruited and employed people to perform sexual acts for clients out of his doctor's office, as well as an adjacent massage parlor that he also owned. Jenna McKay discusses her experience in an essay entitled "My Husband Trafficked Me for Sex." She met her husband in high school, and he was a grade above her. After he graduated, he convinced her to leave high school and get a GED instead. He almost immediately began advertising her online without her knowledge. Men started to come to their apartment to R-word her. While she knew what was happening was wrong, she didn't know what was happening was trafficking. Those around her didn't see the signs of trafficking, as she had become isolated from loved ones and trained to say yes when asked if she was okay. One night, she was beaten and realized she needed to escape. She went to a doctor and then went to her hometown. She had never told anyone what happened because she was still afraid of her trafficker. She got remarried, had a son, and moved across the country. 6 years later, she ended up in the ER having a breakdown from undiagnosed PTSD. She ended up spending some time in a mental hospital, working through it all. She understood that she had been R-worded, but didn't think she was a sex worker despite giving her husband the money after the assaults.
My senior year, I started to struggle with my parents separating, and there was nobody really guiding me or asking, how I felt about it. And I met the man that would become my trafficker in high school. And, I went to a private Christian school, good community in Southern California. And so there was no reason not to trust this person. He was not already a trafficker. It's something he later learned. But he graduated a year before me and really kind of lured me out of high school still, just promising that life would be better with him, that I could, drop out and wouldn't have to deal with all the stress at home and all the hardships. And when I did that, I really didn't think there was any going back. Whatever life with him is what it was going to be. And I started to see some of the criminal activity he was involved in and started experiencing domestic violence from him without knowing that that's what it was. I wasn't being physically beaten. So my idea as a young girl was, oh, well, I don't know what this is, but I don't like it, but this isn't domestic violence. And then we married. I didn't really want to get married. I just felt really stuck. And when I got married, I felt more stuck. And then this, during this time, not long after, he really learned that he could advertise me online and sell me. And so then it began. Yeah.
Yeah. And again,
quite recently, a horrific case of years of trafficking came to light in France. In December 2024, dozens of men were found guilty of R-wording Gisèle Pelicot. Her then-husband had drugged her and facilitated assaults of her by more than 50 men over the course of a decade. Gisèle bravely waived her right to a private trial, saying she wanted to stand in solidarity with other victims. The mass trial lasted 3 months, during which she had to watch videos her ex-husband had made of her abuse. Police found more than 20,000 videos made by her former husband. He had recruited men online.
It's a moment that will remain etched in my memory forever. So, on the 2nd of November, 2020, around 8:15 p.m., I was in the kitchen with my wife and children. The phone rings. I pick up the phone and it's my mum, who tells me that I have to go somewhere quiet and alone, because what she's going to tell me is so unbelievable that I should be alone. And what she told me was like a tsunami, that she was abused by many men that Dominique Pelicot, her ex-husband, had invited to rape her. I felt so many emotions rising within me, and then the nausea, which had been mounting during the entire conversation, reached a peak. I hung up the phone, and it felt like the floor gave away under my feet, and I felt sick. I went to the bathroom and threw up.
The scale of abuse uncovered was mind-blowing, not just from your father, but the fact that he invited other men to rape your mother as well. How did you as a son, as the oldest son, process that?
The moment we were told that she had been abused by more than 50 men, it was very difficult to hear. This man, Dominique Pelicot, was, for me, the backbone of the family. He had taught me to respect women. And so, when I heard what he had done to our own mother, as the eldest son, I was filled with anger and total incomprehension.
The majority of the men said they didn't know she hadn't consented, but they were all found guilty. They absolutely knew that she was unconscious and unable to consent. Giselle went public because she wanted to facilitate a conversation about how the prevalence of R-word and how France treats R-word victims, especially concerning consent, R-word culture, and how men and women interact and view each other. The age range of the men were between 26 and 72 years old, and the French press called them, none of whom informed the police of the encounters, Mr. Everyman, due to the averageness of these men. In some cases, an abuser can lure a victim into a marriage, coming to the U.S. to find that the trafficker is already married, and the married couple force the victim into domestic labor. Family-controlled human trafficking can occur, for example, when in-laws force a daughter-in-law into domestic servitude with the threat of having their son divorce her if she doesn't comply, employing retaliation as a form of coercive control. Let's look at familial child trafficking. Familial trafficking could be much closer than you know. There have been many cases of parents being arrested in this last year alone for trafficking their children. In Utah, in September 2024, a woman was arrested for sexually abusing and trafficking her 10-year-old daughter over several years. She uploaded videos of herself abusing her daughter to an instant messaging app, even though she initially told police that she was using the app for, quote, adult sex talk. She did eventually admit the truth. A user would pay the woman $20 a night to make abuse materials, and the police found hundreds of videos on her phone. A user once met up with the woman and her daughter in a hotel room in exchange for a laptop and $125. In Wisconsin, in May 2024, a woman was charged with trafficking and failure to prevent sexual assault after a man paid her $250 to bring him her daughter. The girl was bound, blindfolded, and assaulted in the back of his van. She bit him and escaped. He was charged with sexual assault, false imprisonment, and child enticement. Also in May 2024 in South Carolina, a couple was arrested and accused of offering their 14-year-old daughter to men for as little as $20 and up to $1,400. The father would bring the daughter to a man to do with what he pleased, and authorities said the daughter was nothing but currency to the couple. Child trafficking starts with covert abuse. This abuse is especially confusing to very young children when the outward appearance of the family does not match the inward reality. The rules are different in school from at home. In a story from the Redmond Reporter, a woman explained that her biological father's position in the community as a very smart white man who was a doctor hid his abuse. Due to his profession, he was able to coach all 3 of his kids, all of whom he trafficked to people from celebrities to neighbors, on how to interact with CPS. She acted out with other kids her age by playing in ways that had inappropriate undertones because she didn't know how to play any differently. Because this is so horrific, people would have a difficult time believing a parent would actually sell their child to adults for this purpose. Often with teenagers, adult authority figures in the teen's life don't recognize destructive behavior as red flags for abuse. Teenagers are supposed to make dumb choices and get in trouble. But for a teen trafficking victim, drinking, doing drugs, and self-harm are ways of numbing the pain. According to the National Center to Advance Peace for Children, Youth, and Families, the intersectionality of human trafficking and intimate partner violence can also collide with child maltreatment. Factors that increase the risk of a child being trafficked are poverty, racism, legal status, homophobia or transphobia, and gender inequality. Due to financial struggles, a child may be forced to feel that he or she must help the family survive, and this is the only way to do so. The intergenerational trauma of growing up in an abusive home normalizes violence for children.
Learning the psychology behind them and then understanding how they manipulate and groom these children. You know, they are sometimes your relatives. They are it's not stranger danger for the most part. So yeah, you have...
Grooming would be started much earlier with a child, and it would make it so the children may not be aware anything is wrong, as well as make the child more loyal to his or her family. There is a confusing combination of love and fear. Juvenile familial trafficking victims are less likely to run away and use drugs or alcohol than victims who are trafficked by non-family members. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children report that 1 in 7 U.S. kids will run away from home, and of those, 1 in 3 will become trafficking victims within 48 hours. Family members may facilitate or be complicit in the trafficking, and some sources say the average age for a teen entering the sex trade is 12 to 14 years old. With social media, a new form of exploitation has been born. Parents posting their children on social media may be fooled by predators who are impersonating as talent agents online. Child influencers on social media would seemingly attract children viewers, but more often than not, their audience is adult men. Some parents go into child influencing not knowing this, but some understand that this is what makes the money. Child marriages can be, or should be, considered a form of child trafficking. Typically, girls are forced into marrying adult men. Marriage adds an element of legitimization to this type of relationship. Some families encourage or force daughters to go into these marriages due to a belief in traditional gender roles. There must be a multidisciplinary approach to working with a victim, adult or child, of trafficking. Using a trauma-informed response, using cooperative partnerships with different sectors, assessment tools that explore complex victimization and gender-specific needs, and finding ways to get resources to victims, professionals can help victims heal and regain their sense of self and safety. Trauma-informed investigation and prosecution are important in this as well. Long-term needs of victims may be varied, but authorities must remain consistent, as victims often will suffer from severe and complex forms of trauma, as well as needing to come to terms with the fact that photos and videos of themselves taken as children likely still exist online and could be there forever.
But in the U.S., it's the amount of child crimes and consumption. U.S. is one of the largest consumption of child sexual abuse material, CSAM, right? They're consuming...
Often, survivors may block out memories until something triggers them, requiring long-term care and consistency. According to Mica's list, the compilation of abuse allegations made against John Paul Miller in Mica's journals and other writings, JP allegedly forced Mica to engage in sexual activities against her will.
I'm going through a lot, and it's hard, and it's my cross to bear. It's the thing that God...
I don't think it's much of a stretch. If we believe JP could be involved at some level in criminal activity,
could Mica have witnessed behavior which was hurting others and took the brave steps of trying to expose it? Could Mica's heroic activity to save others been at the expense of her life?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think the more people in this fight, the more we grow. Eventually it could change. You know, the people are the ones that can make the change. You know?
Well, it starts with them being aware of what the problem is.
thank you for listening. Please comment, like, and subscribe. You can also check out our podcast, Fixate Today, Gone Tomorrow, for more content. Have anything you'd like us to fixate on? Reach out and let us know. Thanks for joining us. Disclaimer: we are not investigators, journalists, detectives, law enforcement, or historians. We are two neurodivergent ladies who just hyperfixate. Please do not take our opinions and ideas as statements of fact. All allegations are just that. We are not accusing anyone of anything, simply offering our interpretation of what we've researched.